terrific away result. I thought the game was very cut and thrust, some good energy in it. Strangely enough, the temperature had really dropped here, and I think it gave both teams the opportunity to play with a little bit more tempo, some good control over periods of the game, especially away from home. Asked a lot of questions of Dallas, but their first attack gets them back into the game, and it then created more of a difficulty, of course, for the group. Some terrific performances, notably someone like Josh Bauer coming in for 35 minutes and performing to a very high level. We speak about Hani all the time and how cool and collected he is to find that winner. There's a lot of time to think about that. And of course, Jack Mayer made a magnificent challenge when there was a little bit of a mix-up on the halfway line and the ball was lost. So some really, really good performances and a wonderful 3 points.
Thank you, Coach. We are going to open the floor for questions. We're going to kick it off with Tim Sullivan.
Hey, Gary, you mentioned Josh's performance there. First of all, what was behind Lucas's exclusion from the group? And then knowing that you didn't have Lucas tonight, how confident were you in Josh? Obviously, you ended up putting him in for Walker, but obviously with Walker, not 90-minute fit yet, how confident were you in Josh?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Lucas goes, there was a change to his immigration status, and we had to file some paperwork that just didn't come through in time, but he should be ready for next weekend. As far as Josh is concerned, I think you've answered the question there. I could have easily gone to a back five immediately. I thought we were playing well. We had good traction in the game. We had good momentum, and I thought there were some performances, especially through that midfield. Annabelle was terrific on the ball. He dictated an awful lot of play. I thought the fullbacks were getting themselves in good areas, and their distribution started to tell. And of course, in the end, I think it was Daniel that supplied Hani for the goal. So I wanted to try and stay with a back four, and Josh held his end up fantastically well, and offered the whole group the opportunity to keep on top, to stay in a more positive mindset. And then, of course, late on in the game, it gave me the option just to try and see the game out with a couple of changes. So delighted for him in particular.
Team, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask what you saw on the goal that Dallas scored. Actually, it seemed like kind of a weird sort of goal that you guys don't concede a whole lot of. What did you see on that play as it developed?
If I remember rightly, I mean, there was a fantastic strike from distance. I can't remember whether it was Velasco. I can't remember, but it was a hell of a strike that struck the bar early in the game. But other than that, they'd really not caused us too many problems. So I was disturbed, to say the least, when they equalised with really their first attack of the game, their first genuine attack. And when I look back, there was, when all goals are conceded, there's some mistakes made. And I looked at some of the footage from the line. The boy on the back post just gets out the eye line of one or two of our defenders, sneaks in, and really and truly, like you said, Tim, we should do a hell of a lot better than that. Look, I've said it before, it's not nice to concede goals. I think the group works tremendously hard to keep their goal intact, and therefore, I think every now and then, especially with a victory in our lap, we can say that, yes, a mistake was made, but maybe a little, kick up the backside just to say, hey, listen, standards need to be upheld. And, if we're certainly going to achieve anything down the line, then, those sort of goals can certainly be or should be dealt with.
Valer Shavila.
Hey, Coach. How hard is it to not get too carried away with wins like this on the road and kind of stay balanced a little bit, but at the same time celebrate? Because we always hear from managers kind of motivating their players to when after a bad situation, but we rarely hear about sort of what's the environment like after a win like this, but keeping it balanced as well.
Yeah, I honestly, there should be enjoyment and elation in the group that they've won an away game. They've won any game. You know, they work so hard for the points that they put on the board. But I think there's also, you know, a more sort of humbling side to it, if you like. You know, the league, our position, postseason, none of that is going to be decided until much later in the season. And there's so much that can go on between now and then. The things that need to keep being reinforced after 24, 48 hours of enjoyment, and like I say, excitement having won a game, is to keep your feet firmly on the ground, to remind the guys that, you know, whilst we're adding points now, that needs to be continued, and our focus and our mindset is definitely the key to that. What I would say right now is one of the most pleasing factors about the group, and I know I said it last week, they look very confident. They look like there's a lot of belief. There was some very good football played tonight. There were moments where the detail and maybe the quality wasn't quite there in the final third, but we've managed to score 2 goals away from home again. We've limited the home side to little, and we've earned a very, very valuable 3 points. But I think we've got a group of guys in there that want more of that. You know, it's not enough just to win today. They want more of it. They can see success in front of them. And I think this is a fabulous opportunity for them to show that.
Go ahead, Valer.
Yeah, and speaking of kind of wanting more and those players you're speaking about, is the supporters shield something you've discussed as a group? Is that something you're targeting, or is it just one game at a time?
Yeah, that's not a conversation point. The one thing that I think is a real driving force, if you like, is the way that Cincinnati's playing. You know, they are absolutely flying. And, you know, part of the conversation has been, look, you know, if we want to be part of the equation or the shake-up in that top 4 and even to threaten them, we've got to keep playing to a very, very high standard. They are the standard bearers right now. We're going to do our very utmost to stick to what we know best and to put them under as much pressure as we can. At the moment, they keep winning and the gap remains the same. But, you know, I'm hopeful at some point, if we can do our job, we might just be able to close that gap a little bit more.
Thank you. We're going to transfer to Claudio Villalobos.
Gary, here at the stadium, it looks like from up here that the teams was always comfortable in terms of the environment. I mean, the weather was better, the crowd was noisy, but still Nashville looked under control most times. I said that because Hani was kind of pulled away from the positions that the looks he likes to have pretty much the rest of the game, but then still he managed to pretty much keep himself in focus and then score the goal and even almost had an assist as well. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I think Hani's role within the shape that we're playing has a little bit more freedom and a little bit more scope. And I think what you're seeing from him is when we're building out and we're in possession and we're trying to manage moments and break lines with a little bit more of a constructive look. He has the, like I said, the opportunity to drop in and make an extra body. And Hani's talent in those midfield areas to find a more creative pass, to pick out one of those, you know, really striking runs that we see from the forwards, whether it's Fafa or Teal or Jacob when he came on. Hanny's quality and his vision can be, just as damaging in those moments. But to your point, I think it's a testimony to the quality of the individual that he sees those moments to go from building out and maybe possession and an individual that can give us more in our half of the field to goal scorer. And the goal, as you well said, there was a lot to do. There was a lot to think about. And he was very, very calm and collected and has given us an exceptionally good win.
Nadia, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, Gary. One of the jobs that goes unnoticed most times is the job that Till is doing for this team. I mean, the way he fights for balls, the way he's a lot of times against the wall, against the box. Most defenders won't let him turn around easily and all that stuff, but still he manages to do a great work for this team. I mean, tonight it seems to me like he did play one of his best games, but sometimes people are only thinking about him when is he going to score, and then they just don't see what the kind of job he's doing in it.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great point, and what I would say to that is that Till's value is very much noticed, and we're all grateful for players and coaches alike. I think if you spoke to the team, they would be assessing Till's performance in the very same way you have. He does a lot of the dirty work. He does a lot of the physical work. He puts his body on the line. And whilst, yes, it would be nice to see or to get him into more advanced positions or more goal-scoring opportunities, I honestly think that other players are benefiting from his physical presence. And Alex gets himself into a good position. We've seen Fafa and Hanny himself get into good positions. And the defenders are occupied by the likes of Till, and physically, he's a problem for him. He fights for absolutely everything. And the amount of effort and energy that he puts into the game is, I mean, truly, you don't see many forwards with that genuine attitude in the modern game. And he is a real throwback to that degree.
Alrighty, we're gonna move on to Ben Wright.
Yeah, Gary, there was that tackle that Hani was on the end of in the first half from Norris, I believe. And it seemed like he was having conversations with the referee about it for a while afterwards. I'm just curious what you saw on that tackle and what you made of it.
It was a real difficult angle, Ben. But what I did say to the fourth official was the player lunged in from a distance, and I couldn't see what and where he caught him. But he obviously made contact. And I think the difficulty is when you go to ground in a modern game, you run the risk that, you're going to get a card if you miss the ball. And it was a lunging challenge. And I don't want to stand on the line, throwing my hands up in the air, waving for a card, because that's just not the way I work. And I don't like seeing it either. But to be fair, there was a case for it. I'm only pleased that obviously Hanny wasn't hurt badly in the incident. But I would have to say throughout the game, there were some strange decisions that were made by the referee. There was one down in the corner with one of our guys, I think it was Taylor, shielding the ball, and he gave a free kick against him. For the life of me, I don't understand what he saw. So I think the frustration started, around about that point in the game, and it continued throughout the game because it was just an erratic nature of the way that the game was officiated, I felt.
And then kind of on a different note, Dan picked up another assist today. I think he had 2 last weekend. We talk a lot about kind of his role as one of the leaders on the team and obviously your guys' defensive record. But what have you made of his contributions on the other end of the field so far this year?
Well, I mentioned it somewhere last week. I can't remember where. It may have been on one of these calls, but I think Dan's benefited from the shape change and from the likes of Fafa and Jacob on that left-hand side, because that's predominantly where they're fulfilling their roles. They do have freedom to work elsewhere, but we're seeing some great connections out on this left-hand side. And I think what Daniel's seeing are more options when he's on the ball. His distribution has improved. I think his completion rate has improved. His creativity has improved. And I think, again, that's also through the confidence that a lot of guys are getting in the run that we're having as well. He's getting himself into good areas higher up the field, but good choices to get there. It's not a constant. He's making very selective choices, but when he gets there, his quality on the ball, I think, has certainly been as good as I've seen since he's been here. And whilst there's a hell of a lot to do, you know, from the ball that was initially delivered, and Hani obviously has to take plenty of the credit for that. But Daniel's delivery, of course, gives him the opportunity and the chance to win the game for us. So delighted. I think he's one of those guys, again, like Till, that goes about his business to a very high level. And a lot of people don't really notice, but he's part of a fantastic back four, back five, including Joe. And he's been very, very consistent this year.
I mean, it's a pleasure to be playing on this team right now. I think we're in a good way. I think it seems like anytime we play the ball forward, especially to Hani, we have a real chance of scoring. And I think that's a luxury not a lot of teams have. And I think it's a really good facet to see in our game at this stage in the season, where we ended a good home spell, not ended, but kind of saw out the end of a good stretch at home in a good fashion. Now we're starting a little bit more of an away heavy schedule for the next, month or so, whatever it is. But to be able to get 3 points for the team is fantastic. It's a great feeling. I don't think a lot of teams win here. I don't think I've won here a lot in my career. So it's a tough place to play. Really proud about that, how the guys showed up and how certain individuals stepped up in big moments in the game. And like I said, as far as the goal goes, it's a brilliant goal from Hani. We're seeing it very consistently. And it's very exciting, even though I don't sound that excited. I just see it so often. And it's not something we take for granted, but it's just a pleasure to play with. And we just got to keep continuing to put him in good spots where he can be a threat and really devastating to the other team in really important moments in the game. So something we're going to continue doing and keep feeding him and keep us moving forward.
Thank you, Dan. We have time for one question per person. So we're going to kick it off with Ben Wright.
Yeah, Dan, I asked Gary this. He was very complimentary of your just distribution and your role in the team. But 3 assists in the last 2 games. He said he thinks a lot of that is down to having guys like Jacob and Fafa in front of you who are maybe opening up a little bit more space. What have you seen just kind of this season in maybe how your role has changed? Not maybe so much defensively, but going forward.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's taken a lot of different forms in my time here in Nashville. And a lot of that's been adapting and being flexible to what we have going forward. So obviously when you have a year and a team starting fresh, this campaign with guys like Jacob and Fafa getting a preseason in and knowing the vertical threat that they pose and what their style of play is, it certainly opens up things for other players. But, route one often is getting those guys behind the defense and trying to pick the right type of delivery, to Gary's point. We work on it a lot. We talk about it a lot, how to get them in the best positions to sort of exhibit what they're all about and how they can be so devastating in their own right. A little bit of a different dynamic to Hani and, a classic number 9 and a number 10. We have wingers that are really, really pacey and can get behind. So for me, whether it's dropping deeper, closer to the center backs to get in deeper positions to provide service, or if it's getting a little bit more aggressive and trying to get on the other side of the other team's forward so that I can be a little bit more advanced and play balls that are, more likely to be in goal scoring areas versus outlet balls. I think I'm just trying to wear whatever hat I can to help the team in any given scenario. And I look at it as a challenge, and how can I adapt and help the team and, improve my game in every aspect. So while I first and foremost focus on defending, I think I take a lot of pride in being able to progress the ball from my side of the field. And honestly, a big part of that this year has been having Jack Mayer playing next to me, and his comfort level on the ball has been at a really remarkably high level for somebody that I don't think a lot of people had as a great passer down in their books, but we knew he had the ability. And getting a string of starts, obviously this year, he's been a fixture for us, and I think it's done him a world of good, and he makes my life extremely easy on the offensive side of things. So I give a lot of credit to Jack and how we're able to use that relationship to be productive on the offensive side of the ball.
Claudio.
Dan, this team has been keeping that streak of winning games anytime you guys score a goal, at home or away. What makes Nashville being to keep that going after such a long time? You score and you win.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, a great characteristic, a great descriptor to have on a team that you play for, and we're certainly proud of that. But I think from our time in MLS, everyone knows we've been a really difficult team to play against, and I think the most consistent maybe criticism or shortcoming of the team is that we haven't been consistently dangerous going forward enough. And I think that's been for a multitude of reasons, but we've evolved year over year and made improvements in that. And I think what we're seeing now is certainly not the peak or the ceiling, if you will, of what we're able to do offensively, but it just, it's a nice facet to have to the game when we do have a great record of when we do score in games. We are incredibly difficult to beat. I think it just gives us confidence, and I think the more we're able to play an evenly balanced game offensively and defensively, when it comes down to some of the more difficult moments in games when we're protecting a lead and trying to get a result, we are able to do that. We've always had that gear, and we've been incredibly difficult to play against, and we've usually held up in very tough stretches of games where other teams tend to concede goals. So I think having that in our DNA is huge. I think it's something that, while our team has changed a significant amount over the years, I think that's been pretty consistent and something that is a non-negotiable for us on the defensive side. So obviously a great result tonight. We're very disappointed about the goal we conceded, because we're in the business of clean sheets, not just defensively, but as a whole team. So that's something we have to look at and learn from and move forward. And we want to be winning that game 2-0, 3-0. So there's progress to be made, but like you said, I think it's great to be in the habit of scoring goals, and we'll continue to do that.
Team Sullivan.
I like the tone of voice with which you talk about how excited you are is always very funny, Dan. But you guys are the first team to score two away goals in this venue. What does it say about maybe the development of your team? I know you've talked a little bit about it through previous answers, but that you guys are, putting up more goals to complement what have pretty much always been the successful defensive performances.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality of it is that, teams put together records in their home stadiums, and they can be difficult to play against, but I don't think there's any shadow of a doubt that this wasn't their strongest team. They're not in a great run of form, so to speak. And we are. And that's what makes this league so special, is that any given night you're meeting teams with players that are available, aren't available. And I think that's the beauty of it. And you have to recognize the moments where you have to have a killer instinct and go after the game. So I think in the past we've come here maybe and understood that it's a different animal and we're facing a different task, but the message was incredibly positive when we showed up and incredibly aggressive about what we wanted to accomplish. And not so much cater to what we think they're going to do, but try to fortify what our approach is to make sure that they're going to have to adjust to what we do. And I think we saw a lot of that. We started the game well. There were certainly spells where it was a bit of a seesaw going back and forth, but in the long run, I think the most important thing was when they were pushing forward, trying to, assert themselves in the game, we were able to pick certain moments to be aggressive and to counter them, which we do incredibly well. And that's been in our DNA as well. That's another thing that we think is a great characteristic that we've shown over the past few years, but especially this year. And when you have guys on the field like Hani, Jacob, Fafa, Randall, Teal, that are putting pressure on the team's back line for a sustained period of time. It's really hard to cope with. And for a team that's playing their third game in the week on the spin, I think we knew this was going to be a 90-minute plus effort, and that we just needed to continue to be positive and aggressive and clinical in certain moments. So you got to tip your hat to those guys and Hani, in the way they're able to capitalize on mistakes or just moments of brilliance in important parts of the game. So it's a great thing to have and something we're looking to continue doing.
All right, Valer, take us home.
Hey, Dan. I asked Gary about the supporter shield and whether that's something that y'all are talking about. And he said it's not really necessarily something you discuss as a team. But he did mention that you might look at somebody like FC Cincinnati as their form and kind of as motivation. How much are y'all as players looking at the teams around you? Obviously, you have to focus on yourselves, but how much is there much discussion about the teams around you and kind of what's going on outside of just Nashville SC?
I think on a very basic general level, we're all checking scores and kind of keeping tabs on the results. Obviously this year with the media deal, things are all happening at the same time. So it's a little easier to keep track of. So it's a little bit more of get in the locker room, check the scores and move on with our life. But I think at this point in the season, the best way to accomplish what we want is just to focus on ourselves. And I know that's sort of a boring answer, but it's true. I think I'm always a proponent of keep your head down, focus on yourself, be honest with yourself, be practical, and try to move forward and improve on a daily basis. And when you lift your head up at the end of the year, you can be proud of what you accomplished. So certainly, I think there's some internal chatter. We do know what's going on. We do know where we stand. We're incredibly proud of it. But I think more than anything, we want to just take note of, let's not look back at the end of the year and be like, hey, remember when we were within striking distance and how cool that was. I think we just want to keep focused on doing what we're doing and improving what we're doing. So at the end of the year, we could, look back and just know that we were in the right mental space and we weren't counting our chickens too soon. There's a great Tiger Woods quote I'll throw out there. When he was in the lead in a tournament, he would always focus on not playing down to other people's level and making sure that if anyone beats them, they have to play at his level. So I think that applies for all the golf people out there. I think we just got to focus on ourselves and being the best version of ourselves. And if there's anybody that can match that and beat it, that's not our concern. We just got to worry about ourselves and continue moving forward.